Welcome to the Echo Oscar Delta podcast, where we talk to Navy EOD techs and hear the stories that they want to share. All ideas, thoughts, and statements are those of the guest and the host of Echo Oscar Delta, and not of Navy EOD or Navy as a whole.
You hit on two things that I think are super important. So comms, right? Having our comms, that has gotten us so many jobs. Like whether it's been humanitarian assistance, flying off a carrier in South America. I know Chris Moscow and his team, when I was up in China Lake and we were training before the deployment where he was killed, was talking with him, and he was talking about how, the strike group was like, hey, we got this earthquake that happened. There's all kinds of bad stuff, right? Yeah. What we don't have is a way to communicate inside of the affected area back to either the ship or the planes overhead and to figure out what they need. And he's like, we have that. Yeah. Not only do we have that, and we have the people that actually know how to use that.
And we're good at it.
Exactly. And man, like right now, we're in this like phase where we don't kind of have to have that because we're not overseas and doing the war during the war time frame. And every training unit block that we went to, every FTX, you had to, your team had to have somebody that was setting up all of your radios, setting up the vehicles, making sure that comms worked. If that comms didn't work, you were getting beat. And it's like we're a little bit lax on that right now. And you see in the humanitarian assistance side, hey, that buys you work. That gets you things that will actually make people want to stay in. Yeah, maybe it's not the going down range on an IED, but it's getting in and doing something where you can come back from and you get back on that ship, which nobody wants to be on. But you know what? Everybody's there being like, man, we actually did good. Like we did good this day, this week, this month, whatever it was, right? Going in to Bahrain. Hey, we need guys that can go in and do this EOD thing, but not just do this EOD thing, because that doesn't matter if you can't communicate back. We need guys that actually have the comms with them. Oh, we brought that.
I'm trying to remember where we were, but I think we were still hanging out in Afghanistan.
Yep.
I did want to, say a couple things about that. So, finishing up, with MU-11 Afghanistan, I ran into, Eddie Griffiths out there was doing some stuff. Alex Sonnenberg was with Steve Bradshaw and Joey Severino and Matt Paddock. They were doing some great things out there at the time with some of our Army components.
Yeah.
There was so much going on out of that area during that time frame. Such an early time frame to be out there too. And we had so many great operators just, making their way and finding their way and, doing great things to, take care of the, U.S. interests and as well as, our partners around the world. And it happened so fast.
Yeah.
We, the towers went down in September, obviously. And, we were all there in October, November, kicking ass.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome.
Yeah. But it was, the Army came in, do what, they do what the Army does and, set up a city, a bunch of colonels out there, running around and, setting things up as a garrison type of command. Still a lot of great operations out of there. We pulled out, the other half of the team kind of came out there, during that time and, things were kind of slowly, getting turned over to the Army to, do what they do best. And that's build a city, kind of thing. So, came back to Mobian 11. Let's see what. So came back to Mobian 11, and I moved into assistant ops. And during that time, Det Northwest was losing their OIC, so I went over to Det Northwest for a period of time. Got to work with JT Milling, and a couple other great guys. JT was really the continuity of that debt. He knew the operations out of ADAC. We were doing a lot of stuff up in Alaska, a lot of cleanup up there, running that out of Det Northwest, and he was kind of a local up there. He'd come back with carabao or caribou, whatever they called it up there.
Yeah.
All the salmon, on top of doing, great operations up there.
Nice.
So, following, Det Northwest, we had a guy an OIC come back early off a 10-month deployment off the Abe Lincoln, came back at the 6-month mark. So basically did a full 6 months. I ended up going out to take his place with, a guy named Wags, Heath, Bartow, Kip Keltner, Pete, and Eric. I'm losing my memory on the last names, but another large team out there. Gulf 2 picked up. We went into Oman.
Yeah.
I can't remember the harbor, but major harbor out there. Things were coming in and moving into Oman,
Really?
to sit for a little while. We're at about 80 miles from Yemen there.
Okay.
It was crazy. All the sailboats were still coming through, and they knew something was up. We all knew something was, getting ready to happen. We did a little bit of lobstering while we were there. Probably shouldn't have, but we did. And cleared the harbor for the ships to come in. Cleared the ships before they left. And all of a sudden, we got word that Gulf 2 was happening. So we got back to the ship. Split the team up. We sent most of the team into Qasar, and 2 of us stayed on the carrier to run flight ops, and that was it.
Yeah.
The other 8 guys were gone. Actually, we had a few guys in Qasar, and then we put another team of divers into Oman.
Yeah.
To dive. So those are remember the things we talked about, right? The cool jobs that keep you busy, working with the locals.
Mm-hmm.
They have a lot of local EOD there in Oman for us right there. But if we came across something, we obviously had to turn it over to somebody. But a lot of good diving, a lot of good logistics. We had to dive off any boat that we could find out there. It wasn't like we had a military vessel out there, but Qasar was a different story. The Kip Keltner took a couple guys in there, and they were doing some of the searches on some of the different boats out there.
Yeah.
I know they came across some underwater mines, some delivery vessels.
Interesting. Was sorry to, I got a couple questions about that like time period and how things worked. Was Bahrain stood up as a mobile unit? Because I know it was a mobile unit for a while, or was that to what it is now?
Bahrain at the time, at that point, that would have been
2003 or
2003. So I think it did.
okay.
It was stood up at that point.
But they weren't supporting with like right now. It wasn't like it is now.
No.
Right. Okay.
And it might have been right before they stood up.
Okay.
I had both the COs down in Key West with me. Well, two of the three COs, Ted Lucas and shoot.
They're going to be listening. They're going to judge you for not knowing their name.
Well, Ted kicked it off. Clark was number 2.
See,
and
I just had to talk a little crap, and you got it.
And Gagan was number 3.
See, nailed it.
Well, I was trying to think of the what the order was there, but
gotcha.
So Lucas, Clark, and Gagan
Yeah.
were the 3 COs out there. But I remember flying through there when I was supporting Team 4 in 2005. And I thought that's when Lucas was there. So maybe it stood up a little bit later.
Okay. Because it was mobile unit for a while, and then it was
a detachment for
detachment,
forever,
not a mobile unit, but a detachment. Yeah.
And you had NavCent, obviously Fifth Fleet NavCent out there. CENTCOM was obviously in another country, but
because it was mobile unit for detachment Bahrain, right? I
thought it was mobile unit 8.
Mobile unit 8 detachment. Okay.
Bahrain.
Okay.
Mobile unit 8 detachment Bahrain, and stood up. Very short lived again, just like mobile unit 4 down in Key West.
Yeah.
Very short lived. Became a CTF out there, and then stood up a second CTF.
Okay.
Out there, and I've never actually worked directly for the CTFs, but 52 and 56. Stood up out there, following that. Again, they did a lot of mill to mills out there. Real, very interesting to work with that part of the world. You've probably did. I remember you did a couple of stints out there, so you understand that better than most. You can again make that as whatever you want, but you are limited to how the host country wants to do things. And you would any other country, but they just do things a little bit different.
The other part that I wondered about is because I did a couple CSGs, one as a new guy, so I had no experience to the upper decks. And then one is, the LCPO because you were OIC on the carrier, right?
Yeah.
The willingness of the strike group to support, obviously they let you push out and go. And I'm sure they were requested like, hey, you got any EOD dudes? We need that.
Yeah.
How was it working with the strike group to get you off and go support Afghanistan and do everything that you guys did?
So it was, it was very easy based on, the doing all the front side, logistics, prior to getting on the carrier.
Okay.
As soon as the, towers went down for that first ride, we flew down, and talked to the Admiral staff down there, and basically gave them our full capability, what we're coming with, comms, weapons, dive, chem bio, detection, everything that, air ops, our mobility skills are bar none, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, the Admiral and, the cause felt very comfortable on the, felt very comfortable with what we could support with. And based on the fact that we could run the flight deck with 1 or 2 guys,
right?
2 guys based on a watch,
Yep.
We were the junior carrier, so we were flying we were flying a little bit less than the senior carrier because they wanted most of the missions, right? But once we became that senior carrier, we were flying 18 hours, 20 hours a day, so flight ops were happening almost 24 hours a day. So it literally, two of us had to be there at least to run that. And then, follow on the Abe Lincoln, we hit the second Gulf War, same thing. And Admiral Kelly, Admiral Sortman was the admiral on the Stennis when I was, in the first carrier ride out of 11. And that was myself, Ryan Bedner. So we were kind of a 2 detachment, but one of us was going to be the CT, basically the CTU or CTE, I can't remember.
Yeah.
In Command Task Force element with the strike group, with the staff.
Yep.
And that was Ryan Bedner. But Ryan and I could swap, right? I mean, if he and I got off the boat at different times. So when he left, I would slide into the role of that position as part of the carrier staff group, strike group. And Admiral Zortman felt very comfortable with what we could do. We briefed him and basically performed at our best. And once we got in theater and we got into Afghanistan, I mean, we could do no wrong after that. We were providing comms checks back with what we were doing, encrypted. Everything we were doing, and that was part of his briefing back up to his boss. So,
and that's got to be money for that admiral, where he's got dudes on the ground, and so not only is he controlling, quote unquote, the his aircraft, his ships, but he's controlling dudes on the ground.
He loved it.
Yeah,
he loved it. And the same with Admiral Kelly. I can't remember who the staff officer was at that time. Frantangelo was a staff officer. He was attached to the ship when I came on, and I briefed Admiral Kelly when I came on what my experience was, and at that point he had a kind of a little bit different look at, not that he didn't trust EOD, but now we had somebody with a little more experience on board than the last, the guy that was on there did a great job, but my experience was obviously, a lot more years of experience, a lot more, opportunities of having been in that situation several times at this point. We were able to kind of, get more doors open for us. So, yeah, both those deployments, coming from a carrier, getting involved, Afghanistan, Gulf 2, I did 3 carrier rides. That was 3 of my deployments, as an EOD tech and officer.
Yeah.
And those are perfect opportunities to get your guys into anything you feel you need to do or want to do.
Yeah.
Whether it's a pass X with a country, if there's a battle going on, and we have the right logistics in place, we can be that team on the ground, if you're good at your job, and most of us are, And like you said, the comms piece is a no-go criteria for most, and having that capability, was number 1 on the list.
One thing, and this is grant most of the people listening to this podcast are actual EOD techs. There's some outliers. Appreciate y'all, but this is specifically for the EOD techs that are listening to. Mentioned, or we're talking about the oh man, this is the old part of me. I'm losing it, and it's not even a name. Oh man,
we're talking about what time frame?
So just this whole this is what it is. Okay. we're losing them now, but a lot of the people, especially on the enlisted side, time now and then getting out, right, spent most of their time on the ground in Iraq or Afghanistan. During that time, they did not have to find work. Work found them.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of what you're talking about is you had to find work. You went on a carrier, and it just like today, you go on a carrier and nobody in strike ops is going, hey, EOD guys, we've been searching for EOD things to happen. Here's this, here's that. Choose your adventure. That's not happening. They don't care. The only thing they care about in EOD is what can you provide the strike group? What can you provide the strike group? So I think there was a time frame, and we talk about like why aren't we doing a lot of things? We got a whole bunch of now senior chiefs and master chiefs that are slowly getting out, that all they did was have stuff handed to them.
Yeah.
Hey, we need you to go do this. We need you to go and they did a great job, right? Like they went, they did that. They did it better than every other service, arguably. I'll say not arguably, but for political sake. But now we're back in that time frame where we have to actually find work, and we did not train the guys behind us how to find work because we didn't have to find it as much. And I think that's one of the reasons why we don't have as much out there is, yes, on our officer side, but I'm not going to rely on the officer side because I'm enlisted, right? Yeah. If I was an officer, I would 100% rely on it. It's true for both sides, but our job is to go out, reach out, use our connections, and find that work so that our teams, and if we're in charge of multiple teams, those teams can go get new guys, seasoned guys, whatever, continued experience.
Absolutely. The first thing, when you're going to go onto a carrier deployment, is if there's not a war, right? But you're going to go float. It's, okay, where is the carrier going to stop?
Right.
Okay. And where's the carrier going to pass? Okay. So you have your pass X's and you have your areas where, you're going to actually, carrier's going to end up, going into port or anchoring off, depending on the rules of that country, whether they want a carrier to come in and actually pull up to the pier. But you're going to anchor somewhere, if you're lucky. And if you're going to do that, then, you want to, 1 week prior, fly off. You plan that pass X or that theater security, engagement, and, plan an event and be confident in what you're going to do with them.
Yep.
Brief that up, but prior to that, like here, maybe it requires the Commodore, maybe it requires the commander, or maybe it doesn't. Maybe it just requires the OIC, and I'll be frank. I mean, I met Chris, the other day. I mean,
good dude.
He is a good dude. He looks like he's 12.
Yeah, he does.
Nothing against you, Chris, but
very handsome.
He is very handsome, young little, baseball player. But I mean, obviously he's a stud. I mean, he's doing great things. Came up and briefed me on some new things that he wants to bring into the Arctic, piece. Lieutenant Schneider did the same thing, and one thing I want to put out there, I'm currently the N8 at group. And, I beg these guys to come up and sell it to me.
Yeah.
Show me, bring your best salesmanship and sell it to me and come prepared. Right. Do your homework and come prepared and help me help you, help the N8 team, help you guys, get the best equipment, get the best training, and let's prepare for the next war. But, getting back to, how do we prepare these carrier deployments to be forward thinking, right? And that is to, be prepared to brief the strike group.
Yep.
If it helps to have, the Commodore as an '06, he may do it. The CO, he may help, with experience or, coming in there and saying, hey, this is what we provide.
Mm-hmm.
This is what we do for you. This is how we, protect those those allied relationships, when we, are heading out to Fifth Fleet or heading out to, Second Fleet or Sixth Fleet, wherever. We pass by this country. We would like to do these types of exercises with them. I've already made contact. We want to do these demolition operations, and kind of help seal those relationships with these countries, and have a good plan in place. Stick with that plan, and obviously move left or right as you need to once you get out there. Ask the strike group to pay for these things.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why these discussions have to happen early, because they have to have the funding to do that, but these little engagements are huge for those countries because, their EOD guys are very important to what they do, because they deal with IEDs.
Right.
They deal with this, I'm not going to say third world problems, but a lot of it's third world problems, right?
Even on the conventional side, we flew into, just because of it, I'm not going to say the country, but on the last deployment when I was LCPO on the carrier, we flew into a country and we got on the ground because, we're both bombing, right? Bombing ranges, right? Legit, just training ranges, but they wanted us to take care of U.S. ordnance. We get in and comms is important.
Yeah.
They had terrible comms with us. So we had no idea. We just brought in a bunch of explosives just in case we had to get rid of something. There was a couple of hellfires that were partially exploded. And they needed us to take care of those because they didn't know how to.
Yeah.
Things like that. Like even like there is it is surprising. The normal U.S. Non-military person would be surprised at how much IED and all stuff is going on in the other parts of the world. But even outside of that, just normal conventional stuff, they were helpful in that.
And it's funny when you do go into places like that, and it is a low ordered hellfire. Those guys that are on the ground, they know that that's not a big problem, but they can't explain it to their bosses.
Right.
Their bosses don't trust them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's, so when you let's talk about that for a minute, right? That's that's preparing our youth, to brief capabilities and be confident in what we can do.
Yeah.
And that is understanding theory, theory meaning, what's in the binders, but having experience. And, I truly believe that every one of our teams should head out to China Lake and Fallon and some of the, Pine Castle, some of the, ordnance ridden areas right now that are looking for, guys to come out and train and also, give free labor. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I don't know what's left in Puerto Rico anymore, but, I know we're doing some diving out there. We're setting up some dive capabilities out there. We'll get into a little bit of that if we have time later, from my industry experience too.
Mm-hmm.
But, Fallon in China Lake and in those areas, I was the Koalave team, when I was back in Hawaii, when I wasn't deployed. I went to Koalave. I volunteered to go there every other week to go, we went once a month to do the, walk the island and find the golden eggs and find blue, 97s in the different ordnance out there, and do those operations and do those burns, train with burning ordnance,
Mhm.
We prepare to do all this. It's what we are supposed to be able to understand everywhere we go. Understand our craft. What is our craft? As Navy EOD techs, right? And what is our craft when we get stationed in Hawaii? What is our craft when we get stationed in the Marianas? What is our craft when we get stationed in Yokosuka? There's you pick up a couple new crafts, a couple new things you have to understand. Culture, um, how do you handle ordnance out there in a foreign country that has EOD, and if it's in it's U.S. ordnance? How do you have to? But the key thing is us really spending the time to learn the craft and being masters of our craft. You know,
Yeah.
and I'm not saying we've gotten away from it. I don't believe we have. I truly believe we have some of the most intelligent guys that we've ever had. But those old guys like the Mike Murrays and the Bud Thrifts and the Tom Liggins and the Jim Gordons and the Mike Jordans, all these older fellas that came before us. They knew the publications. They knew the OP5s. They knew the SWO 60s. They knew, it was ingrained in them.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's not ingrained now, but demo is explosives. Explosives is the first word in our name,
Well, I think so. I chair a lot of boards now. That's my job. Um, and I like it because honestly, what it does is it makes me realize it does a couple things. One, questions come up where I'm like, question gets asked, I'm like, boom, got the answer. And then a different answer comes out and everybody's like, yeah, good. I'm like, wait, what? No. And I don't say it during,
Yeah.
but I'm like, oh crap, that actually changed, the OP5. I remember when the lightning distance changed, and it was in one of those things, and I was like, I was actually the board member, and I asked the dude, and he's like, 10 miles, and I was like, come on, dude, like you got to know this, like that's not right. And he's like, no, it changed when it. And
So what it changed to, by the way?
Hold on, because it was 5 and changed to 10. And I was like,
Okay.
Wait a minute. But so I like that side of it, right? Like every once in a while, I'll be like, ooh, okay, yeah. Like it reminds me, like, hey man, just because you read that a bunch of times doesn't mean that it's not updated.
Yeah.
Like you got to keep getting in it. But also like it's one of those things where like, because the on the ground experience isn't what it was for 20 years, there's a lot of people that have a lot of the pub knowledge, but have never implemented that pub knowledge.
Yeah.
And man, when you implement it, I remember going to, fast forward into to our time in Guam, Gary Myers. I knew a lot. I read a lot. I spent a lot of time in the pubs. And man, like there's some stuff in those pubs. One, there's actually stuff in the pubs that he pointed to after we were doing some big demo ops that I was like, oh dude, I just glossed over that. Like that was one of those, didn't realize that was important. And then there's some other stuff that was never in the pubs that he's like, hey, based on experience, 60 millimeter mortars, don't stack those more than 3 high. Like you're not going to have a good day if you do.
Well, let's talk about Gary Myers.
All right.
I mean, misunderstood, I learned so much from him on the diving side. I was with him out in, out in Italy, and I mean, just the knowledge of different things outside of EOD, but would help within within any construction project, any deconstruction project. I mean, I mean, he was the go-to individual, and I recall, watching him as an LPO when I first got out there, and something new would come out. I mean, he was the first guy to make sure that he read word for word, of that safety gram, of that diving safety piece, of that whatever warning may have come out. I mean, he, our new pub or new policy, and he would be the first one to put that out to his guys and get the word back to the command that he has done his duties as the LPO, and everybody is knowledgeable on this new policy or this new warning. I mean, that's the kind of guy he was.
Yeah.
As much as he enjoyed his personal life, he enjoyed being a leader,
Yeah.
and a team member more so.
Yeah.
And if anybody ever had to break glass and go to war, Gary Myers is going to be my first pick.
Yeah.
Period. Today, no doubt.
Yeah. I'd agree. Like I've told this to a few quiet people, but I'll say it out here. Screw it. So on my first team, we were sister platoons going through, and there's somebody on his team, and I thought, I was pretty close friends with them. Spent a lot of time studying with them, and some stuff happened, and I was like, man, that's jacked up, right? And so I talked to another person that was on his team.
Yeah.
And there should be an unwritten code, right? Like E5s, when you're talking smack about a senior chief, like that should stay E5 level, right? It didn't stay E5 level. And man, like it was one of those things where I was like, I ended up doing a job in a different spot, and he was the lead on it, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna eat it. Like if it was Ace, I definitely would have got my ass kicked. But you know what? Like, dude, Gary just taught me. Like, he ran that op. He put me where I needed to be, and he taught me about demo. And like, I came away from that and I was like, fair enough. Like,
and that's, I mean, let's hand it to him. He read, everything he knew, he read. And I don't know if he ever had a photographic memory, but I don't believe he ever read anything more than once.
yeah.
So, he probably had one of those photographic memories, but, he remembered the important pieces to everything.
Yeah.
His knowledge was based on, again, theory and experience. And, and he was the kind of guy that would call back to tech div if, something was in the pub. He was that guy.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of us were, but he, like I said, Gary was misunderstood.
Yeah.
Because he was one of probably the top 3 most knowledgeable EOD techs that I've ever met.
Yeah.
And it was always on the side of safety.
Yeah. 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 Just a knowledgeable dude, a good dude.
Good teacher.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And like a surprise to me, not somebody that held stupid, like when you did stupid things, he didn't hold that against you.
Yeah.
Like I'm sure on his team, his dudes that did stupid things, right? He corrected that in the way that an LCPO needs to, but not being on his team, I came into it thinking like, dude, this is going to be super awkward. And it wasn't.
Yeah.
And I know 100% that he knows exactly what I said and how I said it and all of that. And it was just like, hey, you're an EOD tech. I'm sure in his head, he's like, you're a freaking idiot. But hey, you're on my job site now.
Yeah.
Let me make sure that you know what you need to do.
Absolutely.
And like, man, I walked away from that again. E5. I was an idiot. I was a strong idiot, but I was an idiot. Actually, I wasn't that strong. I was more of an endurance idiot.
And you weren't that much of an idiot either. But
but yeah,
I didn't want to give you all that credit, back then in Guam, but
you didn't.
but the right guys around the command would.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a different role, and yeah, you can always do things a little bit better.
Absolutely. Now let's back up. Talking about Afghanistan, going into Afghanistan. Talked about how you got there and all that. I mean, you talked about some memorable experiences, but any things that stood out to you that like formed or were just funny?
Let's see here. So as far as Afghanistan goes, we did enjoy ourselves out there. I will say that towards the end of my short, busy tour in Afghanistan, we had some new leadership come in, and it was about that time for turnover, anyways. And I remember the special operations, area was having, beers and steaks, and we were invited. And the new guy coming in, was going to take us out in the field again and go work for another 20 hours, which I don't, trust me, I don't mind.
Yeah.
But this was a one-time opportunity to hang out with some of our other buddies. We haven't done this yet. We worked 7 days a week. Well, there was no 7 days. It was, every day.
Yeah.
The week went on. The week was 40 days.
Yeah.
And we were getting ready to leave the base, and I had been just so irked about this whole thing. And I told him, I said, hey, we're going to go ahead and send a different group in. My team and I are leaving tonight. So go ahead and let us out right here. So we got let out right there before we went out the gate. Felt a little bit bad about that. But there was, they were just going out to do some little bit of demo. There wasn't a whole lot going on that day.
Yeah.
It was more of a turnover type of thing. And we've been there for a few days doing kind of turnover ops. So we got out, packed our bags, and then we went over and had, our 2 beer limit, some good ribeyes. And then we got on a C-130 that night and headed back to Qatar.
Yeah.
And, then back to Bahrain. And actually, I think in Qatar, we got on one of our C2s and headed back to the carrier. Might have made it back to Bahrain and got on a C2. But yeah, then we briefed the next guys going in and sent them in. But the situation, just the way it happened, and I won't tell you who, I love the guy that was taking over, and he's very motivated.
Yeah.
Very motivated. But we hadn't showered in 40 days.
Yeah. Yeah.
And,
There's,
just like, we wanted just one 8-hour day,
Mhm.
And he was ready to get to it,
Yeah.
But it's hard for the rest of the world to probably see what that looked like, heading out the gate of Afghanistan there in Kandahar, heading out the gate and going to do those things. But, those were a busy 45 days to 2 months. And
Yeah.
just, very little sleep, very little downtime, but, nobody was complaining. I mean, we loved the work. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what we lived for. Let's see, on the ship, shoot. yeah, nothing too crazy on that. I'm sure there was probably a few things.
The normal 50 cal stuck in the
Yeah,
gun.
Yeah, maybe some demo, blew off the the what was the ordnance, the ordnance ramps off the ship there.
Oh yeah.
We had a bag of demo go off, and I watched it sink to the bottom. So I told the boss, I said, "Yeah, it sunk to the bottom. We don't need to spend much time looking for it."
Yeah. Luckily, it's like 10,000 plus feet around that area. So
I didn't think I'd ever be one of those guys, but that ship took a hard turn, and we're going out to do the float act, some of the floating mine disposal ops. And the ship took a turn. The wind blew that. I'm watching the kit bag
that's terrible.
with dive weights in it moving across the deck right there by the bomb farm. And Larry Sell goes to dive and grab it, and I had to grab his leg before he slid down the bomb ramp too. Oh my God.
Oh
yeah. So big op rep, message for that, unfortunately. But it didn't happen to everybody, but it did happen to me.
that sucks.
Yeah. But that, like I said, that those two carry deployments were some of the best operational times of my life. Aside from going to work with SEAL Team 4 on our next deployment once I transferred to Mobile Unit 2 from there. Being out there with Matt Grove and Chris Reed and Luke Cummings and Frank LeQuay,
Yeah.
Don Shaw.
That's awesome.
I'm sure there's one more in there that I'm forgetting, and he's probably going to be upset. Oh, Brian Lawrence, didn't mean to forget that one. But yeah, split between Afghanistan and in Iraq. We were supporting SEAL Team 10, SEAL Team 4. We had such a great workup with them too. It was great to challenge those, the special operations guys in some of their own game,
Yeah.
And you have to be hard, you have to be hard and you have to challenge them. And prior to chopping over to them, I had one of the Sync X's with the USS Nicholson. The USS Nicholson was a simulation of the USS Cole.
Okay.
So they brought 2 Dolphin boats in, and we hit 2 sides of this ship in different areas and place the explosives in the Dolphin boat. That was the brand of boat. We removed the floor and stuck it into the hull of the Dolphin boat, the 25-foot boat, whatever. And then we had one on the deck. And I don't remember, but that hull was split almost to the keel.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So the scenario that we were able to split, the other side to the keel was having the explosives in the hull of the boat, about 450 pounds. And we had to live on that boat too. So we had to, once we hit it, each of these charges, we had to go back on and do some damage repair with the damage control team.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And this was lots of, weeks of planning, going up to Philadelphia, taking a look at the ship, working with NavAir to figure out where we needed to place holes to, that we needed quick water to go through and make sure that once this was going to sink, that it was going to sink and not turn upside down and broach and float, for days. But yeah, so we, when I went up there, many, many days and had different teams of guys that were going to be with me because it kept getting pushed. Finally, my team chopped over to SEAL Team 4 and SEAL Team 10, so they were no longer with me. So I had to pull, I think Manthony.
Oh yeah.
Not Manthony. Who runs the Suffolk Air?
Oh,
Mike.
yeah.
Mike Manthe. Is it Mike Manthe? Is that who runs Suffolk Jump?
Is it Manthe? Because yeah, there's another one that's still active.
Tom.
Yeah, Tom. It's not not
Tom.
Tom.
Not Tom.
Is it Mike?
Yeah. Anyways, you have Mantney, and then
Matt.
and Mathney. Anyway,
we're so old.
We are, but no, this is a long time.
I love it. Yeah, it is.
But I had, I had some, a couple EOD guys that were like Army. One of them was an Army, SF guy or Army. Yeah, he was in the Army for a little while. You might remember him, Smith. I can't remember his first name, but took this group of guys that none of us worked together, but we had to put a group of guys together, and we went out there and sunk this ship. But it was interesting because we had these guys had some fleet experience, so we had to do some damage control.
Mm-hmm.
We had to seal some doors and to keep the ship afloat because we had to be on it for a couple more days. So we hit one side of it with the Dolphin boat with the explosives on the deck, and it didn't take the tear all the way down to the keel. It was probably just a few feet underwater.
Okay.
And he went on board. Obviously kept the ship afloat. We slept on the ship, so we looked at we were going to hit it the next time, and 2 days later we did the same thing. And it took it, peeled it all the way down to the keel. We got back on it, sealed some of the hatches, kept it afloat. Then we put some divers in the water and filmed it, with video. Got some guys up into the hull.
Nice.
Filming it, and handed that off to Nav Air. About 3 a.m., the ship really started taking a hard list, so we had to remove all the non-essential personnel from the boat. We started, going through it, making sure our charges were set. Right about daylight, we were finished. We're using the 147s, and the surf starts picking up. And it's off the coast of Charleston, or off the coast of South Carolina, and if the 147 is the 147s, right? The firing. The EFDs, the electronic firing devices.
The six of them.
It's the square. You remember the square little firing devices that you basically turn. And it
Manual set.
Yeah, manual set.
Yeah.
And the timer goes away though. You can't see the time left on them, but you set the time.
Yeah.
Well, we marked the firing non-L. But a 50 to 60, 70 mile an hour squall came across the deck of the ship for about 10 minutes. And these things are banging on, they all blew off.
Oh, no.
Hanging over. I only fired 4 of them now. Okay. Now 4 of them already fired. So I got to bring them back on board and had to sort through and untangle these 8, things. And finally fired the other ones off. So it was a little bit of delay. Interesting. And the goal was to obviously make sure it sunk properly, but the ultimate goal that we wanted was to see the screws kind of, and head straight down.
Yeah.
And sure enough, we got them all fired, we were able to set the time on all of them, get them fired, but that squall blew everything off the boat.
Yeah.
And I was the last one off the ship, so I had to, the thing was listing. We got off the boat, we started heading back to the salvage ship to watch this thing sink. Sure enough, put both screws in the air, lifted the skirt.
That's awesome.
Went straight down. And then we had to go out and get rid of some tanks that were floating, that came off and, kind of get some mine, some floating mine kind of training at that point. So we set some other charges off. But that's that experience again.
Yeah.
We talked about this for 15 minutes here, but that kind of experience, it was one of the best jobs that I ever got to do,
Mm-hmm.
with a group of guys that hadn't worked together. They were motivated. Nav Air was extremely happy with what we did. And yeah, it was a very self-rewarding, job
Yeah.
to do that.
And anything that you can do that you have, like, anything that is a mission that you can end up executing, it's awesome. Like, being able to I remember on my first carrier deployment, I was all disappointed, but I didn't let anybody know. I ended up being the dude stuck back in flight deck control when our people flew off to go do a SyncX.
Yeah.
But, like, doing the planning and talking about, like, hey, if it doesn't sync, okay, here's how we're going to do the charges. Here's my recommendation, new guy on
because you had air assets going in and firing Hellfires and probably some missiles at it. Yeah. And that's difficult. That's even more difficult because half the time it doesn't sink.
Right.
3/4 of the time it doesn't sink. And it's just because those ships are built so well.
Yep.
And you got to get guys in there to.
Yeah. And they were like, how are you EOD techs going to make sure that our ship sinks after we've shot a bunch of holes in it? And we're like, good question. We will come back to you in a few hours. And then we all go back down to the shop and pull up and, like, hey, how do we, if we set charges here, if we sling them there, if we do this and we do that, and we have, not giving it away, but, like, figured out, like, okay, hey, we've got the demo, we've got the plan. Cool. We'll have it on the aircraft. If your ship doesn't sink, we know we can sink it. Like,
so that's a great question. Did you and your team, were they there for the planning, like before it left the pier?
Mm-mm.
So
No.
and that probably happens a lot more now. Like, I was there for the planning, and then I got to, we did not have air assets.
Yeah.
It wasn't about air asset. It was about the USS Cole.
Right.
So we had total control over what was going to happen. Much easier.
Mm-hmm.
Much easier. Okay. Because I remember talking to Bob Brush, out in Det Pearl when he was there, and he did 5 or 6 of these things. Him and Buster Stansel and a few others that were out there, and they dealt with that all the time, and the key to all of it is having the shipyard cut those holes in those major, areas of, those areas where the water is going to flow.
Yeah.
And then flow out the end. Right?
Yeah.
And be able to not cause an air bubble anywhere.
Right.
And sink the ship. And hopefully you always got most of the time they've got an EDO that's helping out too, in those plans, engineering diving officer, but you've got to prep that ship, so it doesn't become a hazard,
Right.
But you're right. If guys got to get back on there after that, after they shot that thing up, I mean, it's not like, it's a little bit nerve wracking.
And our thought was not to put guys in the ship, but to dive guys around the ship and set some things underwater and use the tamping effect.
Yeah.
But it was like, because we were out to sea. We already knew, like, there was the whole SyncX going on, and then it was Strike Ops came in and was like, hey, what if this doesn't sink? Can you guys sink it? And we're like, thanks. All right, we'll figure it out. And then but we came back, and, like, it was another time where, like, as a junior guy, right? It's not like I came up with a plan, but we're all in there like, oh crap, like we got to give them something. Let's all, what ideas do we have? What have we done before that we think we can put together?
Yeah.
What is this ship? Like, all this stuff, and, like, came up with something. We all get together, and then we pass it up. Hey, we've got a plan if you need it. Like, and man, even though we didn't end up needing it.
Yeah.
But, like, sitting there being like, man, if those guys that are out there that have the explosives and are ready, if they have to do this, like,
yeah,
help that. I felt like an EOD tech.
No, that's understanding what your capabilities are with, with the amount of explosives you have, and do you have a way to connect it? Do you have a way to get it to a place where you can tamp it enough where it's going to split a seam,
Right.
and sink that ship and break that back, possibly.
Yep.
If not break the back, but definitely get a seam down to the keel.
Yeah.
But they, normally do a pretty good job of opening the ship up and,
Mhm.
all the way through. So it's going to get free water, flowing water through it. But, I mean, you talk to some of those guys who at shore debts that have dealt with that, and, their asses are on the line,
Uh-huh.
But yeah. So where we at? We at,
So you did Afghanistan, that's out of
Yep.
Mobina 2, right?
Yep. So out of Mobina 2, we split the team up between Team 10 and Team 4. Obviously, going to work with, that level of arrogance and level of competence, what I would say, if you collaborate both arrogance and competence, you get, highly confident, on the urge of cockiness, right?
Yeah.
And we trained hard. We were ready to go over there. We challenged them. They challenged us. It was a great, a great integration to SEAL Team 4 and SEAL Team 10. 10 went out to Afghanistan. So Chris and Luke were out there during the, a couple of the big events. Chris was on that second bird.
That's
Yeah.
I remember him talking about that.
Yeah. He probably told you the story.
Yeah.
I was on my way out there. I was supposed to head out there, a couple weeks after that, but once that happened, they cut the body short on who they were gonna, keep in Afghanistan at that time. But we were monitoring, doing all the PSD for all the heads of state. That was very busy at that time. That was the election time period. So that was a very interesting time, briefing heads of state, on vulnerability assessments and security and, of Iraq at the time, very, very neat experience. And on top of that, several of us, were able to get into some very, some direct action targets and obviously, get a taste of that. So we got a taste of some very, very neat work out there. I thought we might get into some diving ops too, because we did have our dive gear, set aside. That didn't happen, but a lot of, like I said, a lot of security EOD support for that. The team relied on the EOD guys for that, relied on them for the direct action. And then, I was in Afghanistan, but I know Luke and Chris were, very happy to come home from that.
Yeah.
Obviously Chris is no longer with us.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. To tie in, it was Operation Red Wings, right?
Yeah.
So like for those that don't, I feel like a lot of people listening probably know like the background, but for those that don't, so Chris was on the bird that didn't get shot down.
Yeah.
And actually from when I was in Guam talking to Chris, it was pretty much just a fluke that he was on the bird that didn't get shot down. He basically got bumped onto that chalk as opposed to the chalk that he was originally on.
Yeah.
And
yeah, because that was his boys.
Yeah.
Those were his boys over there.
Yeah. And it's
that was a big loss. I mean, Christensen, I traveled a little bit with him. The commander, to go out and set, problems up for the teams and some of the, different areas of training, CQB, land warfare. Actually, I didn't make it out to land warfare, but Frank and helped set some of that up, LeQuay, and
Yeah.
for their own teams, they went out with a number of things to obviously slow the group down a little bit during those operations and training operations. But yeah, that was a big loss. It was scary times.
Yeah.
But ultimately, great to have the team part of that history. And,
Yeah. It's one of those things that I've heard a lot of like we talked about at the beginning, right? You want to go to war. The thing you don't think about when you're a junior guy getting ready to go to war is all the negative sides of war,
Yeah.
right? And it's not just, and arguably, like from talking to some of the guys who have got hit and lost limbs and have long-term things, it's not even necessarily the stuff that happens to you. It's losing the guys that you're with and seeing what happens to them. And so there's a lot to this military side that the TV shows and the movies make it look all super cool, and it is. There's a lot of it that's really cool, but there's a lot of it that be careful what you wish for. That was Sammy Sosa told me that one time.
Oh yeah.
I remember I saw Sammy. He used to beat the crap out of me when I was a PSI, and then I saw him years later, and I was like, man, I still haven't gone. He's like, man, all I want right now is to get a money deployment, because we got the money deployments and we got the work deployments, and he's like, just be careful what you wish for.
Well, Sammy was part of a team that saved some guys.
Yep.
That had ran into some bad stuff, and he's dealing with that today. But you look at the Betrells,
Yep.
and and some of these guys who are quadriplegics and lost several limbs, and they're so freaking strong.
Yeah,
I don't know what it is about those guys. The guys who have who maybe it's survivor guilt. A lot of it might be survivor guilt. But yeah, I can't. I mean, I'm not in that position. And obviously you heard me talk about several guys on my teams that are not with us.
Mm-hmm.
And that's anywhere from cancer to suicides to Pat Wade, no longer with us, wasn't on my team, but I served with him, served with a lot of those guys. But I'd look at war as, to me, as the ultimate way to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're out there fighting for, somebody, higher up said that we've got to get out there and do this, and we're doing it. And I believe in it. I'm a basic EOD Tech 101. You tell me to go do something, and I'm going to go do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think too, when I ended up joining, right, I ended up coming in with the Buds contract, but when I switched to SEALs, when I switched to EOD, it didn't change the thought process, right, of like why I was doing the job that I was going to do, right? And I remember my mom was talking to me. She's like, well, why do you want to do this? And I was like, well, if I'm going to go over there and potentially die, I want to be the best trained to potentially live, right? And
live through everything you can control.
Exactly. And Navy EOD, I felt like we spend so much money per person to give them the ability to live in the worst situations that we could potentially put them in. And like, you know, as a junior guy, like, okay, cool. Like I want to do this thing, but also I don't want to just like charge a hill just to be another number. Right.
Yeah.
And now as a senior guy, I'm looking at, I want to provide the best training for my dudes that are like, I'm no longer in that position, right? Like it'd take a lot to send fat senior chief Clark to go and charge a hill. Right. But I need to be, what I'm looking at is like, for all the dudes that may get tasked to go do in the dangerous thing, right? I want to provide them the best chance at survival, right? As a team chief, the way I looked at my job is there can only be two reasons that if one of my guys get hurt or killed, it can only be one of two reasons. They screwed up, which is a thing, right? Not all of us are perfect all the time.
Yeah.
Or more likely, shit happens, right? We do all the right things and it's just not our day. And it sucks. But like, that's, as a senior leader, that's my job now, is to fight with everybody, to include the innate, to make sure that we have the best gear, the best training, whatever it is, it's the best. And then it's on the dudes to make sure that they put their best in that training, using that gear, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah.
No, that's where we're at now, you know, and that's as important as anywhere else. You know, because I know that guys like yourself, you know, guys like other teammates in your shoes, you know, they put themselves in those operators' shoes, you know, and they know that they've got to give them the best training they can give. They know that they've got to provide them with the best equipment, how to use that equipment, you know, how to, you know, when to use it. It's that's our role, you know. If we can't be in it, then, you know, the only way to be part of it is that we instill our experience and, you know, what we can control, you know, based on, you know, where we've been and what we've done, and make sure that they are more prepared than they've ever been.
Right.
You know,
Absolutely. Yeah. So after Mobile Unit 2.
So after Mobile Unit 2, I went on, let's see, I had my first child, by the way.
Yeah.
So Gabby Thrift was born while I was deployed. Finished that deployment. You know, we came back, and I went over to ops at Training Unit 2. And from there, you know, not the most exciting job, but again, it's the, you know, basic to advanced training, you know, preparing, you know, those individuals to deal with what they're going to deal with when they get to war, or any other mission, you know, to be able to lead, to be able to make good decisions. And I, you know, as ops, I was running most of the ancillary type of training that came out of the training. So ops, the curriculum, the dive suit classes, you know, some of the other advanced, you know, training, the Hearst ops, things like that. We set up a lot of the scheduling. And I spent 15 months there. And, you know, that was a different experience. Again, had a very mature group of guys there.
Yeah.
You know, we don't have to, you know, you give them, you know, enough rope, you know, to hang themselves in situations where it's okay to hang yourself.
Right.
And learn from those mistakes. And that's the great thing about, you know, training and, you know, at that level. About 15 months over there, I took orders to Guam, and that's when I ended up out at Mobile Unit 5. And that's where we met.
Yeah.
First time. And, that was, rolling into the R&T position, the readiness and training N7 position, was one of the greatest, positions I've had, to have that kind of, influence, on, especially at an overseas unit,
Yeah.
controlling the training, controlling, and it's not about controlling, but just having that, ability to, take what you've learned, um, take the training that's required and kind of mold that to, where the teams are going to go.
Mm-hmm.
We had that ability to do that. We weren't afraid to spend money out there. We got guys, all the greatest training to come out. We had a lot of the high level electronics courses coming out,
Yep.
putting those trainings in the right positions at the right time, and preparing, all you guys to go out and do MCM operations, soft operations with, first group, uh, you know, your shipboard detachments that were again doing great things, shore detachments that were always operating, at Marianas. I mean, and then being an overseas unit, and we talked about that, having that kind of family,
Yeah.
where we all stuck together. Um, that was a great experience for me. Um, I don't remember any of the what I would call the bad things that happened out there. It was such a great experience to be in that role, and see the see the youth come out there and have that, that freaking lion attack mode to want to learn and just eat everything
Yeah.
that came in their way. I mean, it was incredible to be in that position and see, guys grow, young guys grow into just incredible EOD techs,
Mm-hmm.
um, and then teams grow together. Watching the Gary Myers freaking train his team, watching the Mike Lentzes out there instilling, his experience on everybody, working with the Eric Carrells and the Bob Boffmans, um, as leaders, the Rob Debuses, um, and just, having that senior enlisted experience from Bill Lee, running that unit. We were a great family out there. And it was good, good to see that. I mean, I got to hang out with all you guys, I wasn't shy about coming out and throwing some dollars on the bar, so,
It's true.
it was great to be part of that and, kind of instill some of that wisdom and also learn from, learn what I learned a long time ago, and,
Yeah.
and not to forget, what got me to that place,
Right.
so.
Yeah. Yeah. Guam was a good time. It was also fun. Like, it's been fun knowing you. Well, I was a junior E5 and scared of you, and now a senior chief and less scared of you, but still knowing that I could die at any moment.
Well, I can't believe that I still have that, type of impression on, people. I mean, I do feel like I'm in a definitely a different place, and, watching all you guys grow to these, these leadership positions has been, is really the culmination of a career,
Yeah.
honestly, to see that.
It's cool. I was talking with, and I'll just say my current skipper. And it is cool being at that point in your career where you've been in long enough that you're like, man, I've got this issue, and like only somebody up high can do that. Oh crap. I know that dude. And you can make a call and be like, hey, dude at neck, I've got this issue. I need, like, you're the actual dude that I need to talk to solve it. Like,
Yeah.
remember when we were in school and you did this and that? Please help me out. Like,
Oh yeah.
like, and, and then staying in, staying in the community, right? Like it's a pretty good community. I remember, man, probably 8 years ago now, I had in my head, I was like, when I get out, I'm nowhere near this community.
Yeah.
I'm going to get out. I'm going to be gone. I'm going to do something completely different. And now I get it. I'm like, I don't know. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do when I get out or when I'm going to get out. Probably going to be in for a while. Sad face or happy face. Depends. But, like, I totally get it. Like, you're still doing things that help affect the community.
Yeah.
Right. And like, that is very satisfying. And sometimes it's things that you could not have done if you were still active duty. Right. Like,
you hit the nail on the head. I mean, sometimes you have more influence, at a position that you would never think you would, and I'll put, myself in the Dirk positions and the Jeff Madrigal positions now, and the Mark Winaldas, where, you get to talk to, all the operators and the 8s and the 7s and the 4s and the 4.3s, because they're not talking to each other.
right. It's true.
But you are, so you sometimes find out, a little bit more than they do about what's going on and what's not going on, and how to move that, you figure out a way to move that needle, and that is very satisfying.
Yeah.
It is very satisfying. And, as I moved, out of the active duty side, and into that other world, I don't know if I ever said I wasn't going to do, I never said, whether I was going to move, far away from the community, physically and mentally, to do something totally different. But what I do know is that when I, communicate with different people in this world, I find myself, going back to my roots and communicating and talking and coming up with ideas with those that I used to work with, on the EOD side, and, we even though we all did a lot of the same things, we still have a lot of different ideas to do great things. And it's exciting. I'm 57 now, and, even talking to you today, I mean, you have some of the same ideas that I've shared, with folks. And I'll throw it out there. I mean, I wanted to own my own marina and kind of do what we talked about early on, have a restaurant, grill, bar, associated with that, and do different things with that marina. Maybe it's on a lake, a big lake. I'm just throwing that out there. And yes, is it hard work? Of course it is, but it's also a meeting place that's very familiar to all of us. And we can turn it into something, more than just what people do on Friday night.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, that's exciting to me. And if, there's so many like thinking people in our community, you get 30, 40, 50, who knows? It really becomes pennies on the dollar to run. And you may bring in a little bit of money on top of that. You may find some, people that want to invest into that. We host different events. Yeah. I mean, it's like you said, we talked about that before we put the mics on.
Mm-hmm.
It's like-minded, but different diverse ideas coming out of it, just
Yeah.
based on everybody's experience or lack of experience.
Yeah. Sometimes that's important.
Yeah. A lot of the guys are business and they're investors. They, it's, the mind, the mindsets that are, at our reach right now are, it's the best out there. We've got the best individuals. It got quiet.
Yeah. One of the cameras just shut off. Hold on just a second.
Might be time to fill up. Times changing in the government, people having a lot more ability to a lot more access to hire individuals,
Mm.
We dealt with some leadership problems out there in Guam. What you could say, some of it was treating people unfairly. You could say that, it was, many different things. But at the end of the day, as a leader, you got to recognize what's happening around you, and you have to do something about it directly. I tried to make that happen, maybe not in probably the best way, but at the end of the day, you treat people fairly. You abide by the rules, and if you're not going to abide by the rules, then you're be prepared to to handle the consequences, right? One of the things that happens overseas, as a family, people take people for granted too. You get a little lackadaisical on your job and what you're supposed to be doing. And we talked about it earlier, the masters of your craft, right? If you are a master of your craft and you take every part of that craft and do it the best you can, with the tools you have in place, whether it's, whether it's on the ordnance side, whether it's managing ordnance, whether it's, the administrative officer, the YN1, uh, you know, QAing parachutes, whatever. Everybody has a job,
Yeah.
and we, being in Guam, we had all the Title 10 functions, so there was a lot to do, like, just like every other Mobian had back in the day. And then you have to hold people accountable,
Right.
And everybody should be held accountable. Whatever that might be, and I'm not going to go deep into it, but the one thing, what I will say is that if you're going to break rules, know the rules. If you're prepared to break them, make sure that your boss knows you're going to do it and why you're going to do it. And again, if there's things that you do not like that are going on within the platoon, safety things, uh, policy, then you have to hold everybody to that standard.
Yeah.
Period. And then don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to act on it.
Mm-hmm.
And don't be afraid to remove somebody from from that situation, from that command. If there's been enough rhetoric going on, then handle it, take care of it. If you can't train them, then it's time for somebody to go away, and don't be afraid to do it.
Yep.
There's a lot of depth there. I don't really know where to take that. You know, but I think there's a training point there, for most in leadership. to, you know, make sure that you understand if you are the senior guy that you are accountable and responsible
Right.
for everything you do, no doubt about it. Um,
I think it's the same in uh, guessing, because obviously I haven't been on, but in the SEAL teams, in an SF team, whatever, generally so one of the things I like when I do my 50/40s with a team, and then outside of that, if like now that I'm in the training side, I'm doing 50/40, so
Yeah.
I get the opportunity. But before that, when I just talked with OICs of teams and chiefs of teams, I would tell them, hey, I can be that dude, but if you don't trust me, that's fine. Like, I get it. Everybody has their person that they trust, right? But for OICs, you don't know the Navy yet, and you don't know how to do EOD yet. And that's a hard spot to be, because your name is the bottom line for everything. It's a hard spot to be. If you feel like the chief on the team or someone on the team isn't doing the job that they're supposed to do, but you're not sure enough to like confront them yet, make sure you have somebody that you can go talk to. And if you're the chief on that team and you've got an OIC, because generally down, the chief is like good. They'll ream anybody below them, right?
Yeah.
But the OIC, it can be an awkward conversation, right? Find that person that is at least that sanity check.
Yeah.
For you to be like, hey, I feel like they're not doing their job or they're overstepping their bounds. What do you think?
I think there needs to be emphasis put on that,
Mm-hmm.
when the team gets together, I think the N7, the N3, even the the commanding officer, XO, need to pull those teams in together, that at least that head shed at first, and say, here's the relationship that you have, chief, what that relationship is already.
Yep.
Don't pull the wool over your OIC's eyes. All right.
Right.
You as the OIC, you understand the difference between right and wrong. You've understood it most of your life, I hope, and you will understand even now what's right and what's wrong. And if it's questionable, there's a good chance it's probably not right.
Right.
Okay. And you need to feel comfortable that you've got to approach that with your chief, not your your chief, or vice versa. But that relationship has to be emphasized, because most OICs will relinquish all leadership to the chief.
Yep.
And that's fine, but they need to know that when that they are accountable.
Yeah.
That if that chief does something wrong, it's going to fall on both of you.
Yep. That's what I try to emphasize to them, is like, because getting that part across, and it's honestly, it's almost more for the chief, because it's, hey, chief, like you probably know before this conversation started that you can abuse that.
Yes.
Don't.
Yeah.
Don't abuse that. Like give that. Yes, they're probably younger. Almost guaranteed they're younger. They don't have near as much experience. It's a frustrating thing where you have to teach them how to be in the Navy and have to teach them EOD,
and possibly be a man or a woman, a leader within the community.
Yeah.
And by doing that, you need to make them feel confident that they are learning everything the right way.
And I've looked at it and I've tried to point out a couple of things, because there's been a couple of points in my career where, I've had an LNO at, I guess his title wasn't really an LNO, but we looked at him as an LNO at a TSOC, someone that is up for captain and is pretty much put at a TSOC to hide out and finish their career.
Yeah.
And when we were talking to them, we need them to do things. They're
must be talking about sock pack. Maybe sock pack area?
actually no. But we needed them to do things, and they're like, I never even did a single drill on chem in my EOD career. I'm like, okay, let's peel that all the way back. That's a chief's fault somewhere.
Yeah.
Like, dive back. And the reason why I bring this up to chiefs is like, hey, I get it. Like, you got to train your junior guy that's going down range eventually, right? And like, you got to do that. But you also have to take care of like this OIC who is eventually going to be, if they stay in, doing policy or being your advocate somewhere. Like, you have to give them some form of experience and on the job training on that stuff.
Tuesday, Thursday, and Wednesday are going to be drill after drill after drill. You know, everybody's going to get experience, right? I agree with you. I mean, you got to, in order for that OIC to be a good OIC, he has to be a team leader.
Yeah.
You know, he has to know as much as the guy going down range, you know, to be able to speak to that confidently to his boss, who he has to answer to. And again, like you know, you said it, I said it, you know, the emphasis has to be put on that. And the pressure needs to be put on that team through their OFRP, you know. Yeah. The sevens, the skippers, you know, they have to put that, you know, that emphasis on that training, and really beat that into them, you know. If they got to get chief, they're not going to have to. I mean, it's going to be easy. It's going to be like, okay, yeah, I hear what you're saying. You know, we're doing it,
yeah,
kind of thing. But you know, that's that whole piece. Train hard. You know, get everybody in the driver's seat till they never get it wrong.
Yep.
You know, and make them feel confident to be able to talk to anybody about what's happening downrange, even if they don't know the entire picture.
Right.
Yep. So, Marina 5.
That's the one place. It's funny. There's my RTO right now. So I was at Molina 5 with him, and he's getting out. He's 100% certain he's getting out.
Who's that?
I don't want to say his name because he'll be all embarrassed.
Oh, okay.
But you probably know him. But it's funny because we were just talking just before he went on leave again for the 50th time. He was like, somebody asked something about staying in, whatever. And he's like, you know, Guam is the only place that I would stay in and go to. And he's like, Clark's the same thing, right? And I was like, I would have no problem. Like, thinking about operations master chief, training master chief, like either of those positions in Guam,
yeah,
would be freaking awesome. Like, that would be a good time.
You know, it'd be even better is if we can bring a little bit of Guam or a little bit of Mobian at 8
back to the States.
Back to the States.
I agree.
You know, and again, it takes a strong personality to do things like that.
Yeah.
You know, it takes a strong personality to, you know, set something up at the unit that the command is going to get involved with.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But maybe it takes, you know, it takes a mini top tech or a mini challenge between the teams, you know, every month, you know, who's going to be the number one who's going to be the number one platoon this month, you know, who's going to be the platoon on the wall this month. You know, is it by number of dives? Is it by number of drills that guys passed? You know, there's something there, right? There's something. It's about competition. it's about fun. And it's about, whatever you do, it has a purpose, that's going to have, you know, effects down the road,
Yeah.
Um, and there's a way to do that. There is. But again, it takes a strong personality, consistency
Mm-hmm.
to stay on that. And it's a lot of work on that leadership to do that, right? It means you may not be going home early,
Yeah.
or you may not be going home on time, I should say, it's there's something there, but I think it can happen,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. I do think too, though, like in Guam, yeah, we had like teams wise on the teams, operations departments. You guys always had to suck it. You stayed late. Training departments generally stayed late because you got in early, set stuff up, broke it down. Teams are gone, right? But teams wise, I feel like inside of just the normal working day, you could plan it out and have things that happen in a normal working day to get multiple teams on multiple mobile units together, especially since we are so close.
Yeah.
Like it takes that person to plan it and set it up and then get it executed.
I think you're right. I mean, I know you are. I mean, it would take a small handful of people to be able to do that.
Yeah.
But it's also, this is not a democracy kind of thing, right?
Right.
This is not. This is not a democracy. We're gonna do this.
Okay? Yeah.
Okay?
Someone has to make it a priority, and they have to make it mandatory.
Yeah, we're gonna do it. All right. But the key is having a good plan in place.
Yeah.
Don't fly by the seat of your pants.
Yeah.
And I remember, Johnny Detweiler, guy would give you the shirt off his back. He would work his butt off to the end, and he still does. He did not like the flying by the seat of the pants thing, and it turned me into a better planner, as their leading petty officer. I mean, we had
Those cameras are tired. I still got one going. We're good.
Poor cameras. Didn't like my face.
Face is pretty.
Anyway, I don't remember where we're at now, but we're
Detweiler.
Yeah, Detweiler. Yeah, I mean, we became thick as thieves, and a lot of that was that I learned from him, learned from me, but I had to plan things out a lot better to make sure that we were not wasting so much time.
Yeah.
But like to throw one out there for old Johnny Detweiler. I miss you, Johnny. Miss you, Joey O'Toole too. You're up in heaven now, probably hell, but anyway, you're somewhere where you want to be. And wherever you're at, you want to be there. I know you do, bastard.
Oh.
But yeah, anyway. So yeah, Guam. We could go on and on about that. We talked about it before we got started. We've talked about Guam through and through. It is near and dear to all of our hearts. Soju in Korea. Whatever they got in the PI. Patio. All those fantastic, places we operated in, and can't forget the JMSDF, Japanese security force, Marine Force, God, was all great places to operate with.
You know what we need to do? And I'm going to steal this from non-EOD, but what we need to do is, because generally, well, we're kind of not this way anymore, but mobile units generally had like an area, right? Do you ever do anything with the first?
It's backside support, yes.
Okay. So
Planning and exercises.
when I went on deployment with him, at the end of deployment, they did a coining in. And so if you did, I guess we met the cut. I don't know how, but we did. So first of all, they had, I won't give everything away, but what they did was their team sergeants on each one of the teams took a whiskey or a drink from whatever country they decided that was going to be theirs, right? And then they put it all in a punch bowl. So it was terrible. But then their coins, though, represented everything that they did, right? And they were serialized to the point where the commander wrote down your name after, because what they did was they put it in a boot, and then they filled that boot up, and then you did that boot, you drank that boot to get your coin, and then they got your serial number and they wrote down your name. So you're in a book forever. We need to do something like that. Like, it doesn't have to be that extensive, but like serialized coins at a mobile unit. At each mobile unit, you're at 2. You spend a certain amount of time there. Cool, you can be coined in. So at the next coining in, you're coined in, you're serialized in that. Like, we need to, I think that would be, because then there would be like.
So is there a coining in board that decides who gets coined in?
I don't know. I wasn't part of that board. Maybe. But there's like I know that there was a minimum amount of time that you had to be there. And then people got to say yes or no. Because I remember somebody didn't get coined in. There was a reason, but they didn't.
Shit happens.
But something like that would be, I feel like those kind of things, that brings the family, the specialness back to it. Because it says it's another way to say, like, you're not ready yet.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you did the time, but you're not ready yet.
Well, I think we got something there. I think we need to probably look at this recording, because we've got some tasking.
We do.
We got some tasking coming out here.
I like it. All right. I'll ask you. I'm going to say 2 questions, but it'll probably be more. Do you have anything else?
I'm sure I'm sure I've left some, I wanted to give some shout out to a bunch of folks, all the leadership in my life that got me to sitting here in this couch with you today, that made me worthy of being here. There's so many. It's almost like a retirement, but it's all those teams. It's the Chris Reeds, it's the Johnny Detweilers, it's the Jeff, the Jeff Madrigals, who are very serious about things and meticulous about things. It's the Joey O'Tools that never held anything back. It's guys like my father, who believed in me and spent the time to, teach me some fishing knots, and math on darts, and, the way he, just the way he looked at discipline. It's the Tom Liggins, my first CO, who gave me the opportunity, to continue on for 30 years, because as many times as I got in a little bit of trouble down here in Key West, I could have been let go.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's, so many great leaders, so many great situations. I hope that, coming out of, I hope that, as our community continues through these times, this new new leadership regime coming in, that, we look at our job as something that we can't get right in a couple years, in 4 years, in 8 years. It's a continuation of growth in situations that you're put in that make you a master of that craft. Because we need more masters of our craft.
Yeah.
And in order to become that, you have to be put in many situations. And war will come, battles will come. The fun operations will come in other countries, in these sync X's, in these little training exercises you set up with your team. Um, just stay motivated, stay open-minded, be fair, be hard. And when you make mistakes, don't forget to punish them. Maybe it's beers, maybe it's physical,
Yeah.
but make it fun. Make it all fun.
I like it.
And make it all a learning experience, it every day should be a learning experience. And if you have any more questions, please ask, because I'm just.
I've got one more, and I'm going to start asking this to everybody.
Yeah.
I wish I had thought about this 48 episodes ago, but if you could build the ultimate EOD tech based off of the different Resborgs, what would their career look like from start to finish? So, like, would it be a MOB team first, an MCM team first, a certain shore debt at the point? Like, if you got, let's not say a whole career, but like a three to five.
Yeah. I would say that, I have not been part of an expeditionary mine countermeasure team, but I would say, if just say expeditionary mine countermeasures wasn't there, mine countermeasures would ultimately be, I think, the initial team to get into, to kind of get that overarching concept of what EOD can do. Because you're gonna, back, what, I'm not gonna say back in the day, but an MCM team used to exercise just about every capability,
Right.
And it still probably does.
Yep.
I mean, you're a master of MCM, but you're not necessarily a master of everything else, but you have the ability to do everything else. And I think that experience would give you a general idea of, of the breadth of experience that EOD can give you.
Yeah.
And even today, I'm not going to bring, naval special warfare into this in too much detail, but, expeditionary MCM, falls under that, that new buzzword, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of you know what I'm talking about. It's very important. I mean, that's kind of the direction this maritime world is going into, and that's very important. And, I think it's going places right now. So I think MCM, mine countermeasures, so especially mine countermeasures, would be the Resborg that I think that would kick everything off.
Okay.
I think that would be the start. And having those abilities, I would say, roll right into an NSW team after that.
Yeah.
I really think so. And again, we've got to put our guys in different situations. We've got to train them.
Mm-hmm.
We've got to train them to speak well. We've got to train them to learn well. Understand understand the craft from A to Z, not in a day, but at least give them a general idea in their first tour, of what they need to know. But Expedition MCM, NSW, and then everything else will be a cakewalk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like it. Cool. Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate you sitting down with me, having a drink of 4. And,
One or two.
And, sharing everything that you've done in your career and sharing some stories that a couple that we've had together.
Yeah. I wish I could share a lot more. I definitely would get in trouble.
Yeah.
And I'd even get in trouble. Somebody would, NCIS would come here and fire me right now. They'd flying through this door. But no, it's, like you said, it's been a great 40 years now. We didn't get into the industry side, but I would say that, everything that an EOD tech does today, in the situations you're put in, makes you ready for just about anything you want to do in life.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. Memorization, you'd be a great doctor. Getting on the podium and having to, brief some high level, operations, sales and pitching something, I mean, it's, you're prepared for anything you want to do on the outside. I had no problem with transition from the military side to the civilian side. And I don't, the only thing that I can, put that on is my experience in my 30-year Navy EOD career. It was an easy transition, and not that I wasn't a little stressed out about it, but because I was a little stressed out about it and prepared, it worked out.
Yeah.
But I want to thank Jerron for giving me the opportunity to be here.
Absolutely.
And thank you for your patience. It was great getting out here. I didn't know how I was going to be able to handle it. I was actually very nervous, coming here to speak about different things. I know I've threw some names out there. Hopefully you're not going to be too pissed about it. But, it was all fun. It was all, good experiences. And, everybody's name I mentioned because it was a great time in my career,
Yeah.
So, but thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. We can always do another one with it. Industry minded.
Yes, we can.
That'd be kind of fun.
I'd like to maybe come over here and do it with a team group too one day.
That would be awesome. I know I've put it out there before, but I am 1,000% down. Like, let's get some dudes that were on teams or at a shore deck together, or like just hate each other. I mean, love each other. Like whatever. That would be so much fun. Like I can say like 3 words to start, and then y'all can just go ham, and then I can do 15 hours of editing afterwards because there's too much of this or that. But I'm down. Like, no, I really think that would be fun. So,
no, thanks again. And we've got the holidays. We've got the holidays here right now. We had a good Navy kind of EOD function at Ballyhoo's the other night.
Yeah.
I'd like to do more of that. I'd like to also, go ahead and task Ted Pickett with stepping up his game a little bit.
Yeah, Ted.
Do a few more events a year. But Tidewater, we have the most motivated EOD techs around. Let's go ahead and do more with each other and keep the team going.
Yeah.
All right.
That actually reminds me. Last thing is, we had just talked about at the last just before Christmas event that was put out, trying to get the NEOD association to do a semi-frequent kind of update on the podcast. So I think we're going to be doing that soon. We'll see who participates from that, but I'll keep hounding them, and that way we can just get another method of getting the word out of like events and whatnot. Cause I think that'd be awesome.
Absolutely.
Like, and if you're a junior dude, get out. Like it's freaking awesome getting out, talking to the senior ambassadors, talking to the dudes that have like the experience in the time, especially in the time frame that, man, a lot of stuff was allowed that's not allowed anymore. There's some good freaking stories out there. But yeah, then you'll also find like me and some other dudes that aren't as experienced. I used a special word. But all right. No, I appreciate it, man.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you for listening to the Echo Oscar Delta podcast, where we talk to Navy EOD techs and hear the stories that they want to share.